Good evening, everyone. You are in the spotlight with Brian Gardner for this Tuesday, March the 29th, 2016. Good to have you all here for our first of two shows this week. That's right, we are back on our week schedule here after a few weeks of being down to one show. In fact, since our film awards in the first week of March, we haven't had a Thursday show. Well, we'll be having a Thursday show this week. More on that in just a moment. But first, I want to start off by mentioning a few important things, more important than anything we'll talk about tonight. Yesterday, for those of you that do not know, I don't know if any of you are Catholic or you watch EWTN, but the founder of that network, Mother Angelica, she passed away yesterday at the age of 92. So we want to send our thoughts, prayers, and condolences to her family. May she rest in peace, and to her fans as well, thoughts and condolences. A remarkable woman. And a true revolutionary starting that network. So if you're a Catholic and you ever checked out that network, you probably know who I'm talking about. So may she rest in peace, and thoughts, prayers, and condolences to her loved ones and fans. Also today we lost a very well-known actress, Patty Duke, who many of you probably knew from Dallas, and she was 69 years old. Lovely actress, phenomenal actress. And our thoughts, prayers, and condolences to her family, friends, loved ones, and fans as well. That is a big loss there. All right. As we get going here, I want to remind you all of the ways which you can interact and contribute to our show. You can have your voice heard by emailing us at itspotlight411@gmail.com. You can also follow us and tweet us at itspotlight411. And remember, please use the hashtags, hashtag ITSpotlight411, hashtag ITS5, of course, that one for our 5th anniversary on the air. Or you can use any hashtag or hashtag ITS in it. You can hashtag ITS Wrestling, something related to wrestling, hashtag ITS TV highlights, anything you want to use with ITS in the front. Go ahead and do so. Be creative. Have fun. You can also find us on Facebook. Just search for the Spotlight 411 on Facebook. Make sure you like our page upon finding it. That's, as I said in the open, we are back on a 2-show schedule this week. Next week we may not be. We may be only on one time next week. I'm not sure yet. This week we're going to be on twice because we have the WrestleMania preview. I honestly was going to preempt this Thursday, but I just couldn't figure out a way to do it where it worked out because we had the WrestleMania thing. So I figured, you know what, we won't do that this week. So this week, 2 shows. Tonight will be just like last week, except we're going to have fewer things to talk. We talked about quite a few things in the midst of the big stuff last week. This week, it'll just be NCAA Tournament, box office beat, TV highlights. We're not going to really veer from that. It's going to be much more. Not as much as last week, but we threw in a couple NBA things and all that stuff. So that's what you're going to get here tonight. And then, of course, we're going to head to the Final Four this weekend. And then Thursday will be an all-wrestling show previewing WrestleMania 32. So if any of you wrestling fans out there want to submit questions or comments either before the show or during the show on Thursday, you can do that by email, Facebook, and Twitter. We'll be taking stuff from before the show as well as during the show. So please do keep that in mind for Thursday. Next week, if we do 2 shows, next Thursday, I think we're going to do the MLB preview. I think if we do not have 2 shows, we only have 1, then we'll table the MLB preview until the following week. It doesn't, you all know how I feel about that. We don't devote whole shows to it anymore. And you all know how I feel about that. We don't have to do it the first week. We can actually, sometimes it benefits you to wait a couple weeks to preview teams. So that'll be coming up in the next 2 weeks for those that are wondering. Also, for those that are wondering about the American Idol all-time performance rankings, I just dropped my pen. We'll be addressing that on next Tuesday's show, not this week. I keep screwing up the date. We will reveal those numbers on next Tuesday's show. I keep getting the date wrong and saying the date wrong. I'm sorry about that. I know we've been prolonging it, but it actually works better to do it next week as the finale approaches, and then give you all a couple of days, because it really doesn't take that long to do that. A couple days to finish out the all-time performance rankings list that we're doing here, and we've been doing for the last couple months. And then the statistics from the In the Spotlight Film Awards, I'll finally give you all those next week as well. I don't want to do it when we have so much to do because it kind of drags things out. So all that will be coming up for those that have been wondering about that. And I'll let you all know on Thursday if we're going to only do 1 show next week. That information will be given to you then. So, all right, that's all the reminders. That's all the announcements. My co-host is on, so you're in the spotlight, Mike. How you doing?
I'm here.
Well, that says it all, doesn't it, folks? That says it all. Really, he's very excited about WrestleMania this week.
No, I'm not.
Okay, Nobody
is excited about WrestleMania this week.
Let me swap that out. Clearly, he's excited about NXT in the Final Four this weekend.
NXT is going to be great. Shinsuke Nakamura versus Sami Zayn. That's going to be a hell of a match.
And the Final Four. That helps still. But, all right. Okay, so, again, the way we're going to do tonight, NCAA Tournament, box office beat, TV highlights. And there was a little I didn't put this in the show because there's a little topic that I'm going to bring up. And it's not going to take long, maybe a few minutes. It will not take long. It's basically just a pet peeve of mine. We'll get to that later on in the show. And it revolves around something in entertainment. So we'll deal with that later. All right, so we'll start off with the NCAA tournament. I keep mentioning we're excited about the Final Four. Well, why wouldn't we? You know, we're in Syracuse, and both of our men's and women's basketball teams have made the Final Four against a lot of odds. Of course, we all felt good about the women's team this year. But the men's team, if you asked us 3 weeks ago if we thought we'd be sitting here and they're still playing, we would have laughed in your face. No disrespect meant. You know, if they would have gotten to the if they would have gotten to the second round, we would have been happy. Well, things opened up a little bit, namely Michigan State lost. And they were able to get to the second weekend, and they were able to beat despite what a lot of people think, two really good teams. Okay, one good team and one team that I still, even though I think they were better than they have been in the last couple of years, I still think they were a tad overrated. Hello, Virginia. So, you know, they're able to do that, and now we sit here, and Syracuse is in the Final Four with a 10 seed, which, let's be honest here for a second. They're only a 10 seed because they lost 5 out of their last 6. If they win a couple more of those games, they're probably a 7 or an 8, and it doesn't look nearly as dramatic. But, you know, still they're a 10 seed, you know, so there it is. We'll talk about that. Syracuse is really remarkable. And Syracuse is the only – you got to give – I think CBS and TBS is probably praising Syracuse because they were the only – any game involving Syracuse was the only game that had good finishes this weekend. All the other games were, well, you know, I mean, I'm not saying they weren't entertaining, but ultimately, once you got down the stretch of those games, the team that won those games was up by 10, 15 points, and they pretty much put it away. None of those games were really competitive. I mean, the Sweet 16 round was tough to watch. I mean, anybody that followed me on Twitter knows I barely tweeted because there was nothing to say. It just wasn't. It was entertaining, but it wasn't dramatic. It wasn't compelling. All these games that we had set up just didn't end up being competitive. And the Elite Eight was somewhat like that, but it ended up being a smidge better, I think, only because maybe some of those other teams stayed in it a little bit longer, I guess. But when all the smoke settled, you're left with Syracuse, North Carolina, Villanova, and Oklahoma. Now, you think back to the preseason, you think back to even when we were throughout the early part of the season when we were talking about potential Final Four teams, we mentioned Oklahoma. We mentioned North Carolina. I think we mentioned Villanova. I mentioned Syracuse, but there's always one in there that you kind of go, all right. So, you know, 3 out of these teams, 3 out of the 4 teams are teams that, you know, I don't think you can be really too surprised. I think that at points in the season, you looked at those teams and they each hit their little walls. Villanova hit a wall at one point. Theirs happened very early on. Oklahoma hit a wall mid to late season. That's why they dropped to a 2. North Carolina hit a wall and then got better as they went late. You know, the Duke loss, I think, really changed their season. The first Duke, the only Duke loss, I should say, changed their season. They've looked better since that game. You know, and they know they gave up that game. Duke didn't win that game. North Carolina lost that game. It was that simple. And I think that their whole season changed. You saw them in the ACC tournament; they were dominant, and they've looked dominant since then. Villanova has been dominant really since I think the middle part of January. But even in this tournament, you've seen how good Villanova's been over these last 3 or so games. They've been phenomenal, especially on defense. Their defense is what beat Kansas, really. Their defense was absolutely phenomenal in that game. And Oklahoma, who, look, if nobody's going to step up and stop Buddy Hield, you got to shut down the other guys. And that hasn't happened in this tournament. That was Oregon's. First of all, Oklahoma defended Oregon really well. Look, the Duke matchup we all knew was going to be a tough matchup. We all knew that. Duke does not have depth. Oregon's an up and down team. You're going to run Duke. You're going to drain Duke. You're going to exhaust them, and that's what you're going to get. And that was a bad matchup for Duke. But you get to Oregon, Oklahoma. Oregon's up and down team. You got to slow them down. Oklahoma can play you half court, full court, doesn't matter. They have a good offense. Their defense did the right thing. Took them out of their game. Oklahoma and look, the idea behind Oklahoma, and Michael, we talked about this a little bit last night. You let Buddy Hield have his 36 points. You don't let anybody else get anything done. If you're going to let 20 points come from somebody else, you're going to lose that game. And that's what teams are not getting in this tournament with Oklahoma. They're not shutting anybody else down. And then you have Buddy Hield getting his 30 or so points, and somebody else is getting 20, another guy's getting 15. You're not going to win that ball game. It's just not going to happen. It's just not going to happen. You have to let that go. Let Buddy go and just guard everybody else. That's the way you got to do it. And that's what I would expect Villanova to do that this weekend. But yeah, look, Kansas had a great season. Villanova's defense won them that game. I'm not going to talk too much about the Sweet 16 game because there's really nothing to say there. I'm not going to waste our time. And not because I'm trying to be deliberately cagey or anything like that. There just wasn't enough there. They were all blowout games. The only game that had anything going for it was Syracuse-Gonzaga. Syracuse with a great comeback. That was a tough matchup for them, especially you look at the inside-outside game that Gonzaga has. You basically had to let Sabonis do his thing and shut down the perimeter. I thought they did a good job of that in the second half, which is why they won. And that was the ultimate adjustment. And then, of course, they went to the full court press, which they did in the Virginia game. And that's really why they beat Virginia. They beat Virginia because they went to the full court press and they sped Virginia up. They sped Gonzaga up a little bit too. And that kind of took them out of their game as well. And also made it so that they couldn't get too many perimeter shots because you get tired, you lose your legs a little bit. And that kind of hurt the Gonzaga there too. So really, Syracuse is all about the press, and the press has helped them get back in both those games and got them to the Final Four. And Malachi Richardson finally decided to play like the guy that he was recruited as helped as well. So that's, like I said, there's not much I can say about the Sweet 16 games. A lot of like I said, was about the Elite 8 games because I thought they were a little bit better. I gave you a little bit of insight into the Final Four, but I don't want to talk about the Final Four games yet. I want to just kind of go back through my thoughts on what happened this past weekend. This gave them to you, Mike. Do you have any thoughts on what happened over the weekend here?
Every time I read an analyst about Syracuse, I get a little frustrated.
Yeah.
It just kind of goes back to points we've made on this show before. Specifically, I'm not even talking about Doug Gottlieb or Pat Ford. There was a whole article recently about all these analysts who thought, and I'm ignoring Dick Vitale because Dick Vitale really didn't have a negative thing to say. It was just twisted to fit the article. So I'm ignoring Dick Vitale, but everybody else, it was pretty straightforward. And I'm going to say this now because I don't know when I'm going to have a chance to say it again. Because as for the games themselves, there wasn't a whole lot to say about the games themselves.
Mm-hmm.
Other than the fact that Syracuse had a miracle game against Virginia, a team that I didn't think they could. And I'm very happy they did them. And against Gonzaga, which was just a close game, and Syracuse just happened to pull away late.
Right.
And that Virginia kid giving me that great picture, which I've been using a whole lot. Oh, that kid. Oh, when I saw that kid do that, I'm like, I hope Virginia loses because I can't wait to use that picture a lot. And they lost. They lost. And that picture gets retweeted a bunch by me. But the whole thing is like, oh, Syracuse shouldn't have been in the field. If Syracuse wins it all, and I don't know if they will, everybody in this Final Four's got a valid shot.
Right.
They said, oh, if Syracuse wins it all, do they deserve to be there? Some people are saying, still no. What do you mean no? Who else are you going to put in the tournament? I'm actually waiting for an answer. Who else would you going to put in the tournament?
Here, everybody keeps
St. Mary's?
They make the
Monmouth?
Case, yeah. That's what they make the case for. Monmouth, San Diego State, Valparaiso. Yeah, that's what they're making the case for.
All right. Well, that's fine. St. Mary's, Valpo, Monmouth, San Diego State. Okay. Tulsa shouldn't have been in the tournament. Long story short, Tulsa was gifted the first four. They embarrassed themselves, and they shouldn't have been there. It's just the truth. Michigan shouldn't have been there. Syracuse? Really? Okay. Let's look at. All right, we're ignoring the fact that they played Duke and Carolina, and they had a really, really rough conference. Let's ignore that real quick.
Mm-hmm.
Let's look at their non-conference. Who did Valparaiso beat non-conference? And don't tell me that mid-majors don't get a chance to play people anymore, because they do. Mid-majors get a chance to play people. Mid-majors get invited to these same tournaments that everybody else did. Who did Monmouth beat? Monmouth should have been in there instead of Tulsa. I've already said that. Who did St. Mary's play?
Right.
St. Mary's single best game of their schedule was Gonzaga. They played them in conference, and they barely won once.
Right.
Who did Valpo play? Who did all these teams play? Did they win those games?
Well,
yeah. Well,
Well, let me just say this, because the reason why I'm hesitant, I didn't want to interrupt you, but I agree that Monmouth should have been in, and I think Valpo should have been in. I don't think St. Mary's should have been in. I don't think San Diego State should have been in. But I think Monmouth takes Tulsa's place. And then you look at, if you want to look at Temple, if you want to look at Vanderbilt, you look at those teams, or one of the Pac-12 teams that got in, and say, I take one of those out and put in Monmouth or Valparaiso. Those two teams should have made it. I agree 100% with that. But why is Syracuse the one that everybody's looking at as a team that shouldn't have gotten in? That's the thing that I don't understand about this whole thing.
Because no, I don't understand either, because they were 19-13. Yeah, I get the record's not so good, but when you break it down, they had 5 great wins against the field. Yeah, they had a loss to St. John's. Mm-hmm. Sure, they had a loss to St. John's. St. John's won like 10 games this year, so they beat 9 other people.
Right.
And you're telling me that St. Mary's, who didn't play a damn person non-conference,
right,
didn't have a bad loss?
No, right. You're right.
You're telling me that Valparaiso didn't have a bad loss? Monmouth didn't have a bad loss?
Mm-hmm.
You're telling me these teams didn't have a chance to play somebody good or play somebody bad and lose or win?
Mm.
No. Syracuse had when you consider every team on the bubble, and this is Lenardi's moron stupidity, this is Gottlieb's, this is Pat Ford, this is half of those other stupid analysts who thought Syracuse shouldn't be there. When you look at it, Syracuse had the 3 best wins of anybody on the bubble. Duke, Notre Dame, Texas A&M.
Yeah.
Connecticut, too, if you want to throw them in there. Duke, Texas A&M, and Notre Dame.
Right.
3 of these teams proved themselves to be Sweet 16 teams. One of them was an Elite 8 team. So even now, don't sit there on your fucking high horse and say that Syracuse shouldn't be in. Syracuse shouldn't have been in the tournament. Don't say that.
Yeah.
And for a couple of them, don't change the narrative. Syracuse drew Dayton. Dayton was the favorite. Dayton just had a habit of missing shots that played to Syracuse's advantage because they had better rebounders, plain and simple. Tyler Robertson had 17 rebounds that game?
Yeah.
They just had better rebounders. So they blew out Dayton. Middle Tennessee State shocks Michigan State. And every single major analyst were calling them the Cinderella story because they beat mostly everybody's pick for the title. They upset Michigan State in the first round. And I know you had them. I had them in a bracket.
Yeah, agreed. Yeah.
Everybody's pick was Michigan State, or mostly everybody's pick was Michigan State. Middle Tennessee State. So all suddenly, Middle Tennessee was everybody's Uber Cinderella. And Pat Ford got caught on this hard. He got caught changing the narrative, saying Syracuse was gifted a second-round opponent. No, they weren't gifted a second-round opponent. They beat the team that screwed everybody. They beat a really, really, really fucking good team in Michigan State. They had a really, really good team. It's just Syracuse exploited their weakness. Their lengthy zone is something Middle Tennessee did not see.
Right.
How many teams see man-to-man? You almost exclusively see man-to-man. If you see a zone, it's probably not a great zone. When you get Syracuse, you get a lengthy zone that moves. So they didn't know how to handle it and screwed their shooters. That's just how it happens. It was a bad matchup for Middle Tennessee State. So don't change the narrative saying, oh, well, just admit when you're wrong. I could sit here on this show and say, look, I thought the final would be Kansas and Michigan State on this show, even though in the bracket that I'm winning in, I took Villanova. But we can sit here and say, look, according to the stats, according to the numbers, look, Kansas was playing the best ball of anybody in the country, and Michigan State was doing a little bit better. They were teams 1 and 2. Michigan State got number 2 that was disrespectful. They should never have gotten a 2. However, they got a 2. They had all the momentum on their side. What happened? Michigan State ran into Middle Tennessee, and Villanova somehow outlasted Kansas in the Elite 8, which was which is probably the second best game in the Elite 8. Easily the second best game. Easily. Now, there's the thing. And I don't mean to ramble on about it, but good Lord, what else we're going to talk about?
No, you're fine.
Because when we get to entertainment's going to be depressing. Entertainment's going to be very depressing.
Yeah, it is. It's going to be.
Because not only do we have to talk about the shittiness that was Batman v Superman. By the way, its Monday numbers are worse than Deadpool.
Yeah, they are.
First weekend Deadpool. And we have to talk about the amount of loss in the celebrity world. 3 come to mind over the last couple days. 3. But the truth is, these analysts tried to change the narrative. Oh, they were gifted an easy road to the Elite 8. All right, so suddenly we're discarding Gonzaga? A lot of people had Gonzaga to kind of be a sleeper to the Final Four because they had excellent shooters, they had a great point guard, and they had a center who was dominant. And as we said on the show, they hadn't lost a game by more than 10 points all season. That narrative held true, ironically speaking. Syracuse had a fighting claw from behind to beat Gonzaga.
Right.
Who didn't lose by more than 10, by the way. Who called that shit?
You called
Yeah.
that. That was a good point. That was.
We looked at the numbers. Looked at the numbers, and somehow they play out. Gonzaga was a really good team.
Yeah, they are.
Excuse me.
Mm-hmm.
And I have a feeling they could have beaten Virginia too.
Mm-hmm.
Probably could have beaten them more handily than Syracuse did. And then Virginia, Virginia was on average an 8 to 20-point favorite over Syracuse. Because Syracuse hasn't beaten Virginia in years. And look, that press. You're down by 16. You throw out the press. 2 minutes, it works. That throws off Virginia. They lose Sabonis. Or no, they didn't lose Sabonis. Excuse me. They lose their bigs. They lose their best shooter. Those threes at the beginning of the first half turned out just be fool's gold because that guy couldn't hit the rim for the rest of the game.
Right.
I don't know what this whole I don't know if you noticed this, but in a lot of games now they do this. Now they smell their fingers.
Yeah.
It's like, why would you smell that? Did you know where those fingers have been? It's gross. It's worse than the stupid 3-point glasses that we saw Malachi fucking doing.
Yeah.
But the thing is, Syracuse came out. They pulled off the miracle comeback. And that was a true upset.
It was.
That was a true upset of Virginia, 100%. Now the problem is they have North Carolina, and look, the rest of the games it was interesting. Buddy Ball came to play against Oregon. I think Buddy Hield is an excellent player. He's probably going to win Player of the Year. The dude is incredible. Dude's incredible, 100%. He's probably the best single player left in this tournament.
Amazing.
He's amazing. And somehow Villanova's got to deal with that, but Villanova's dealt with great players all year.
Right.
Villanova is a team of guys, a team of experienced guys who are coming out and ready for war. Because this is the farthest they've made it in years.
Yeah.
And they don't want the season to end this quickly. They need something for the Big East. And Syracuse, North Carolina. Look, who won the ACC? Was it Virginia? They won the tournament.
North Carolina won the regular season and the conference tournament.
Who did Carolina beat in the final? Was it Virginia?
Carolina beat Virginia in the ACC tournament final. Yep.
By how much?
It was a good amount. I think it was at least. I think it was at least 10. I know it was double digits. I don't know exactly how much off the top of my head, but it was a substantial win. Wasn't really close towards the end.
No, didn't Virginia beat Carolina during the year?
I want to say they did. I think they played twice. I want to say they did. Hang on a second. That was funny. I was looking at North Carolina anyway. Because I was doing this to make my point in a minute because I know that there was something to your point about Syracuse that I want to bring up. Okay, North Carolina.
Let's see, UVA. Let's see, UVA.
I thought they played twice, but I'm not.
Yeah,
sure.
they lost to Virginia the first time by 5.
One of the games. Yeah, right. Okay, I'm seeing that now.
They only beat them by 4. Maybe Virginia by 4.
Oh, I remember that game. Okay, all right. Yeah.
No, they'll be Virginia by 4. Syracuse was a team they struggled to beat when they played them late in the season at Carolina. Look, and this is just a preview because I've been talking. I don't ever talk this long, at least longer than you.
No, I'm happy about it.
Look, Carolina is an exceedingly good team. They have pros on that team. God, your face got so big, it's gross. They're an exceedingly good team. Can Syracuse beat Carolina? Possibly. That's just it. They could do it. Are you going to buy into the hype? I don't know if you should. I'm sitting here in Syracuse, New York, and I'm saying, I don't know. Maybe? Look, I really would hope Syracuse wins. It's hard to pick against North Carolina, though.
Yeah, it is.
It's really hard to pick against North Carolina because Carolina's really good. But don't be surprised if Syracuse could pull off another miracle in the second half. Don't be surprised if it happens.
Yeah.
Because if Syracuse comes out and they play like they did against the second half against Virginia, and they stifle Carolina's offense, but see, Carolina's got more pros than Virginia did.
Oh, for sure. For sure.
But then again, sometimes that's a bad thing.
Right.
But if Syracuse can come out and play like they did, and especially in that second half, and keep it close and keep them within striking distance and then go on that run, you never know who's going to show up in that final. And the thing with Villanova is if they can contain the rest of the team, it doesn't matter if Buddy Hield gets 40. It really doesn't. If they can contain the rest of the team to maybe 10, 15 points and then score,
right,
Villanova can beat Oklahoma. On the other hand, if Villanova lets 2 or 3 of those guys get to double digits, and Buddy's going 20, it's going to be hard to beat Oklahoma. So I know people are like, this is going to be the least watched Final Four ever. Yeah. Surprisingly, nobody knows to win this year.
That's fun.
There is no favorite. It is regardless of seeds, and let's face it, we have a 1, 2 2s, and a 3 and a 10. Excuse me. It's anybody's game. Carolina is the favorite, but it's hard to say that a 1's going to win this year.
Yeah.
Who knows? Carolina. I mean, I wouldn't bet against them, but
yeah,
I don't know.
I
don't know.
It's for just back to your point about Syracuse for a second. I know for everybody, people out there that you're going to sit there and go, well, wait, they're from Syracuse. They're biased. No, listen. I don't have an issue if you're trying. If let's say Syracuse was Vanderbilt. I don't want to make this Syracuse versus Vanderbilt, but let's be fair here for a second. If Syracuse were Vanderbilt or Tulsa, I would completely understand the criticism. I don't understand the criticism when the whole idea of putting teams in this tournament is this. You take teams you know can win games in the NCAA tournament. Now, I understand that the last 10 games is always a big, big factor in deciding whether a team makes it. But you couldn't use that this year because so many teams finished the season bad, and most of the bubble teams finished the season so bad that criteria wasn't a good measuring stick. So you throw that out the window. You also have to remember this. Syracuse's case, and it had been talked about by all these commentators for the last 2 months of the season. You could not look at Syracuse like you looked at the traditional bubble team. Why? Because they didn't have their head coach for 9 games. Well, they knew that was going to happen. Yes, but they didn't expect it to start till January. It ended up being earlier than expected. And if you look at it, right, and that's when they played their worst basketball. It happened right before the Georgetown game, which they lost badly, and right before this, and then the St. John's game followed right after that, and they lost that one badly. They did not have time to adjust. So that so-called bad loss, 2 bad losses or 1 bad loss happened when they didn't have their head coach. If you look at Syracuse when they had Jim Boeheim, they never had a bad loss. No, they never lost to a team outside the top 50 without Jim Boeheim. And I'm going to say this right now as well. Look at Syracuse this season. Outside of the ACC tournament, they are unbeaten in tournament play. In national tournament play, the Bahamas, Battle for Atlantis, which is a national tournament, and now the NCAA tournament, they have not lost a tournament game. Now, they very well could lose on Saturday. They're playing the number 1 seed. But I'm just making the point.
Although here's to the point, Carolina's on a 9-game winning streak.
Right. But just to point that out, this is a team that proved they could beat teams in the field. And before somebody says, well, wait, they did a lot of that in the early part of the season, they beat Duke in February. at Cameron. They beat Notre Dame in February. And I know they didn't have
Notre
Demetrius.
Dame.
I know they didn't have Demetrius. No, it was actually at the Dome, but still.
That was at the Dome? I thought it was at Notre Dame.
No,
usually when we beat Notre Dame, it's at Notre Dame.
Weirdly, it is, but no, this year was at home. But they didn't have. But I know the thing is, I know people say, "Well, wait, they didn't have their point guard." Look, they still beat them. And Notre Dame ain't this team that only relies on one guy. They every game you look at, they have somebody different stepping up. So that's just the way Notre Dame is. But they had the quality wins. In a year where you looked at the bubble and very few teams had more than 1 or 2 good wins, you had Syracuse sitting there with 5. How in the world do you keep them? I don't care who they lost to in December. They also did it when they didn't have their head coach. And even if they did it with Jim Boeheim there, you look around the field, there's teams that were in the top 10 this year that suffered bad losses against a team like St. John's. You can't use one bad loss as a reason to keep a team out. Now when they got 5 wins versus the field. Okay, I'm sorry, 4 wins. St. Bonaventure should have been in the tournament too, but they weren't. I'm including St. Bonaventure in there because they should have been in there, but I digress. The argument shouldn't just be made against Syracuse. Why is somebody? The reason why people are so fixated on Syracuse because they made it so far. But if Syracuse get knocked out in the first round, nobody would have said anything.
Well, they would have said stuff because they would have said stuff. Yeah.
Not as bad though. This is getting ridiculous. Like, oh well, don't enjoy the ride. You shouldn't have been there anyway. Let me tell you something. 5 years ago, they were saying the same thing about VCU and Butler. When these were the so-called mid-majors that got left out this year that people are upset about, and they should be because those 2 mid-majors should have made it. But what I'm saying is, everybody said VCU shouldn't be here, but nobody said anything once they became Cinderella, did they? Nobody said anything. They all dropped it. Why are they saying it about Syracuse? Because it's a story. It's a story because of what happened last year with them not being in it. Because they're trying to create this thing where the NCAA despises them. It's something to talk about. They're trying to create something that's not there. Now, I'm sure if push comes to shove, the NCAA probably doesn't like the idea of it happening. But at the same time, what are they going to do? They accepted the punishment. They've done it. They lived the punishment. They're dealing with it. What are you going to do? Despise them the rest of the time they're around? The program's not going to go anywhere. You can't despise them forever. It's a silly, stupid narrative that makes no sense whatsoever. If it were Vanderbilt or a Tulsa or something, that would be a different story because those teams did not have anywhere close to the amount of wins that Syracuse had. You look at they had 1. And then you look at I know they got 13 losses, but think about who they lost to. Outside of St. John's and Georgetown, every other win was versus a top 50 opponent. Or a team in the tournament. They played an unbalanced ACC schedule where they played the top of the ACC twice. They played Pitt 3 times, a team that they just don't match up well against.
Never have, never will.
So you think about this for a second. If Jim Boeheim's there, I guarantee you they do not lose all those. They probably win at least 3 of those games that they lost.
Although, to be fair, now that Jamie Dixon's gone, we might actually have more of a chance.
We might, although Kevin Stallings is a good coach.
Oh, he's a very good coach. Yeah,
and by the way, that was a very good pickup. You lose Jamie Dixon, but getting somebody like Kevin Stallings to step in, that's a very good pickup. They did a good job there. Yeah. I'm surprised he left Vanderbilt, but good job there by Pitt. Good hire. But yeah, I mean, look. You play. I mean, you think about it, but if Boeheim was there, they probably would have won 2 or 3 of those games they lost.
At least St. John's.
Right, and then you're in the 20-win plateau before you even get into the postseason, and then you think about this. Let's say they, if they win those games, they might not have. Maybe there's a chance they don't play Pitt in the first round of the ACC tournament because that seeding was very close at the end of the season. Maybe they don't play Pitt, and then they don't lose that game. The way that they're playing now is very reminiscent to the way they were playing against Texas A&M and UConn in November. Texas A&M, I mean, and Mike, you noted this. 3 of the teams that were in the final 16, they beat.
Yeah.
I know you're not supposed to say, well, how they play now doesn't matter and how their resume was looked at. It should matter. That should matter because these are teams that they beat. And if they're performing well and they beat these teams in the season, that proves they belonged. It's just a weird story. I don't even want to fix that. You know what? It's done. It's over. They're here. Whatever. Look, the bottom line, if you look at this Final Four, is this, it is a wide open thing. Yeah, North Carolina's the favorite. North Carolina's a 1. It was really interesting because we got into that Elite 8 and you had all 4 number 1s, and then it went. But look, if there's any, we talked about Oklahoma. The only way to play against Oklahoma is this. Oklahoma's a team that went through a rut late season. Buddy Hield never went through a rut. But the other guys did, I should say. But listen, the way you play Oklahoma, you defend everybody else. You let Buddy do his thing because you cannot stop Buddy Hield. You will not stop Buddy. I've seen him double teamed. It doesn't matter. You will not stop Buddy Hield. All right? So you go after everybody else. You shut down everybody else. That's going to be the big thing for Villanova is the fact that it's control everybody else. Buddy's going to get his points. The other thing they cannot do, too, is and I've said this has been the key to Villanova. It's always been the key to Villanova. Play defense without fouling. They've gotten through this tournament doing that. That's why their defense has been so good. They've been playing good, solid man-to-man defense without fouling. If they continue to do that, they'll be fine. They got the guard play. They got Uchefu in the post. They got the players to pull this thing out. They just need to be careful. Cannot put Oklahoma at the line. Cannot get into foul trouble. And really just guard them straight up and make sure Buddy does not – make sure nobody else but Buddy beats you. Do not let anybody else beat you. If you can keep everybody else under 20 and Buddy does his thing, then I think you're in good shape. The cool thing about this Final Four, and you brought it up, like everybody's thinking, oh, it's going to be the lowest rated Final Four, blah, 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 blah. There's a compelling narrative here. You got Syracuse and what's going on with them. You got Villanova, Oklahoma. You got Oklahoma, who's got the big star player. North Carolina, who's that big program you need for a boost. There's a lot here. And really, if you'll get conventional or predict something that would have been predictable in the preseason, which is Oklahoma versus North Carolina, or you get something maybe a little more unpredictable. Villanova was a team that we looked at as getting to a Final Four. A lot of people didn't think they were good enough to get to a championship game. But if they get there and they play North Carolina, or they play Syracuse, or Oklahoma plays that's a different matchup and a very even matchup. So it's a very wide open Final Four with some good storylines and some interesting storylines. And really, and we mentioned Syracuse. I mean, it's a Final Four of rematches. You got Oklahoma and Villanova. They met in the non-conference. Syracuse, North Carolina met twice in the regular season. Syracuse both times played them very well. The first game they met was Jim Boeheim's return, and it kind of petered out at the end. But the second game at North Carolina, they played very well in. Could have easily won that game. But really, the thing about North Carolina that I think is going to be interesting is this. The biggest thing for Syracuse and North Carolina is Syracuse has to crash the boards. They've been able to do that all tournament. They got to crash the boards. If they can make sure that Bryce Johnson does not dominate them in the post, then I think they have a very good shot. Marcus Page is a good shooter, but he's not the kind of shooter that's going to go off for 30 to 40 points. He's not that kind of shooter that's going to be like, and Mike knows this, you always get that one guy that always kills the Syracuse zone. He's not that consistent. He might have a good half, but he'll tail off. That's kind of how Marcus Page is. He's a good shooter, just that's kind of how he is. He'll have like a 10 to 15 point first half, and that'll be it. That's kind of how it goes with him. It's really more about making sure you contain Bryce Johnson. That's the biggest thing. And their bench is really the thing that makes North Carolina thrive. Their bench gives them an electricity. It keeps them going. You're almost better off playing against their starting 5 because their bench has an electricity to them that just takes over. it's funny. Syracuse won their games, the last 2 games, really by speeding up the other team. This time they want to slow down the other team. That's really a big thing for them going into that game. So that's the key. Is if you look at, if you're Syracuse, you want to try to slow the game down, crash the boards, make sure Bryce Johnson doesn't hurt you. Might have to overextend a little bit. Marcus Pace. They really need Malachi. They need Malachi to do what he did. They need Benajay to have a better game than he did. They got lucky. Malachi was so big in that game. They need Benajay to have a good game. They need Malachi to have a good game. Cooney needs to keep being restrained because that's been very helpful. You got to have Lyden and Roberson continue the defense that they've been giving you, because if they do that, that's going to be extremely helpful. And can't be in foul trouble. They've been able to avoid it for the most part this tournament, and that's been crucial. And that's the same thing with Villanova. Avoid foul trouble, guard without fouling, and just make sure nobody else beats you but Buddy Hield. That's really the thing. In Oklahoma, really, Oklahoma can. It's hard to pick out what Oklahoma has to do, because really it's just Buddy Hield, and get somebody to step up and help them. If you have somebody to step up and help them, then you're in good shape, because they're going to play really good defense. That's what Ron Kruger does. Their offense is going to churn through Buddy Hield. That's going to be a given. They just need somebody to step up and chime in with him. If they get that, then they're in good shape. That's as simple as that for Oklahoma. In North Carolina, it's play the way you've been playing. They've been able to hold teams down a little bit. Their offense has been amazing. They've been crashing the boards. They've been hitting from the perimeter. If they keep doing that, they're going to be tough to beat. But I think it's going to be a really interesting Final Four this weekend. I think it's going to be a really, hopefully, now last time we were in Houston, we had an awful array of shooting performance by all the teams. Awful. I'm hoping we don't get that. I will say this, though. If it ends up being similar to the last Final Four in Houston, where all the teams struggled to shoot the ball in that building, that kind of favors Syracuse. Because they're used to playing in games in the 50s. So that would favor Syracuse a little bit. But we'll see. I'm hoping that's not what we get, because that would be kind of boring to watch. Also, got to have a little homer moment here. I obviously want to give a shout out to the Syracuse women's, and really to the Washington and also Oregon State. 3 programs that never been to the women's Final Four are in this year. That is a fantastic thing. Congratulations to all those teams, and obviously UConn as well, but they're always there. And look, if UConn's not at least in that championship game, I think we'd all be surprised. And if UConn doesn't win the title, we'd all be surprised. But you never know. It's been a weird tournament. A lot of the tried and true programs have lost, but it's great to see some new teams in the Final Four and to have that breakthrough. It's been a really good thing to see. So that's always good to see that kind of thing happen. So I just wanted to make sure we brought that up. And it was funny. I should have mentioned that we bring up the coaching move. Jamie Dixon going to TCU, Kevin Stallings going to Pittsburgh. We already kind of brought it up, but one of our listeners or our fans did ask me about, like, why would Jamie Dixon go to TCU, even though he's an alumni? Why would he do that? Do you think he got pushed out? I think, just to really quickly address it, I do think there was a little bit of a push. I mean, he's been there for a long time, and Pitt has not done very well in the NCAA tournament. Even when they're in the Big East, they won the Big East tournaments a couple times. They've done well in tournament play, in conference tournament play. Haven't really done so well in NCAA tournament play. And I think that's something that probably there were, played into it, and maybe he just felt like it wasn't working out. I think he would have been back next year, but I think he would have been back and he would have been on the hot seat. I think he would have been his job would have been on the line next year at Pitt, I should say. So I think rather than go through that kind of season, he just decided to, he probably got offered the TCU job, and TCU is getting better. I think they're about a year away from being a contender as far as getting to the tournament out of the Big 12. I think they're really getting close. They had some really good games this year. So he probably seen that, and he got offered a job, and he thought, okay, you know what? It's my alma mater. Why not? And look, why Kevin Stallings would leave Vanderbilt for Pitt, well, it's the ACC, and the SEC's been down the last couple of years. You know, Vanderbilt, really, this season was supposed to be a good season for them. It didn't turn out that way. They've had a couple of the last couple of times they've had supposed to have a good season. They didn't have the best season that it didn't have the kind of season they expected. So maybe he just felt like a change was over. He's a great coach. He's going to do very well at Pitt. His style will work at Pitt. You know, it's not as rough as Jamie Dixon's is. It's not as physical, but he's very defense-oriented, so he's going to work out great at Pitt. So it really is a good matchup, and we'll see how Jamie does at TCU. You know, he built a good – I mean, people forget he didn't have to build a program at Pitt. That program was already built for him. He stepped in for Ben Howland. So we're going to get to see. I mean, there are pieces in place at TCU. Like I said, they have shown signs of getting better. But he's in a way he's going to have to build this program. So we're going to really see how good Jamie Dixon is at that, because he's going to have to really build the program in a lot of ways. So, all right. Mike is right though. You know, I'm glad that we kind of talked about that, a lot of those things, because once we shift to entertainment, it's going to be a little bit more demoralizing. We are going to shift to entertainment right now. And it is a little demoralizing. And you know, look, you know how you all know how I feel. Look, I know everybody has their opinions. There's people out there. We bash the Transformers movies and Michael Bay regularly. I know people like them. God bless you. Enjoy. But, you know, we have our opinions too. I think they're garbage. I've always thought they're garbage. And look, I went and saw the movie. I saw the movie because I don't want to be one of those people that, you know, people go, oh, you didn't see the movie. How do you now? You can't just hold a great. Look, I watch anything because I want to speak from experience of seeing the movie. Okay, I watch everything. I've seen the movie, and it was everything that I feared it would be. I don't want to give a review right now. I'm not going to get into it. It was everything that I feared it would be, and it's a shame. It really is a shame, because, and I'm going to throw this in here right now just so we can get this over, because I mentioned I was going to bring up a topic that I didn't put in the show description, a pet peeve. I'm going to mention it right now because it works right now. That pet peeve is this. Even though I am more offended or insulted, I should say, by a movie that pretends to be something it isn't, than just a movie that doesn't excuse the fact that it knows what it is, and it's, even if it's bad, it knows what it is. Let me give you an example of what I mean by that. You look at the Transformers movies. They don't pretend to be intelligent. They don't pretend to have all these thoughtful themes and want you to walk out of the theater thinking about something, or thinking about a broader theme like peace on Earth, or you know, violence in society, or terrorism, or the 1%, or anything like that. They're not trying to have these political themes or these really timely themes in it, okay? It's just a Transformers movie. It's robots going at each other, okay? That's all it is. It's a popcorn movie to the extreme, all right? It doesn't pretend to be something else. Doesn't throw things in there just for the sake of trying to be intelligent. It doesn't pretend to be anything but what it is. And even though I think those movies are bad, I can appreciate that. At least you are what you are. You don't try to disguise it. I get a movie like this that came out this weekend in Batman v Superman. Don't forget the V. And what I get is a movie that's trying to disguise the fact that it's nothing but overinflated garbage. Okay? It disguises itself as this socio-political kind of thing with all these moral themes of, is Superman a god? Should he be worshipped like one? Oh, should Superman be policed? Oh, well, wait, Batman's a vigilante. Should Batman's crushing civil liberties? Why are we okay, first of all, I don't mind you exploring these themes, but if you're going to explore them right. Give some time to them. Develop them. Expand upon them. You're giving me a 2.5-hour movie. You have time to do that. You look at the Christopher Nolan Batman trilogy. He did those kind of things. He explored those kind of themes in all three of his movies, and they were prevalently focused throughout the movie, throughout the plots of those movies, so that you did walk out not only being entertained, but you were thinking about things. You can't think about, if you want us to think about these things after your movie, you have to explore these themes you introduce. You don't just toss them out there in a few lines of dialogue and say, oh, that's enough. No, that's not how it works. It's insulting and it's offensive. And people will see through it. Maybe not at first, because there's a lot of flash in there. No pun intended. Okay? There's a lot of flashiness. There's a lot of special effects. Some of them are awful, by the way, not very well done, which is shocking. You know, and some people, you know, you get caught in awe of that. And there's things in there that will really mesmerize you, and you go and make you think it might be better than it is. I saw the same deal with Man of Steel. I saw the same deal with Avatar. At first, everybody's like, oh, you know what? The critics don't know what they're talking about. This is actually pretty good. Oh, they did this, they did that. And then as time goes by, with every passing day, week, month, and year, more and more people, you know, they watch it again. They go, you know what? What was I thinking? Doesn't happen so much with the Transformers movie, but with these kind of movies, it does with these themes that are there but don't get explored. That's what's going to happen with this movie. Anybody that likes it now, maybe your mind won't be changed, but I'd say a lot of people, the more they see it and with more time passing, they will watch this movie back and they will go, what was I thinking when I praised that movie? That's what will happen. And it's a pet peeve of mine. I think it's so insulting and offensive to do that. If you're going to introduce those kind of themes, and I don't mind you doing it. I think that's a great idea. It would have worked for this kind of movie. But do it right. Explore them. Don't just give me 2.5 hours of tossing them in dialogue, not exploring them, but making sure that you give us almost an hour and a half worth of climax, just like Man of Steel, where it's all just a bunch of explosions and constant action sequences, instead of exploring the storyline and the plot and the themes that you introduced. There's no excuse when you have 2.5 hour runtime not to explore those things, if that's the kind of movie you want to try to be. And that's clearly what they're trying to do, or at least that's what they're disguising it as, because that's all they've said in interviews. So that's a pet peeve of mine. It's annoying. Don't try to be something you're not. Either you are going to explore these themes and you're going to be that kind of movie, that kind of comic book movie that explores these themes and tries to be a little bit more on the intelligent side, a little bit more thought-provoking, or you're going to be a Transformers kind of movie where you're just going to entertain people and just have fun with it. Then do that. Have fun with it. I don't have any issue with that. I may not like the movie still, but at least you're trying not to be. At least you're being exactly what you want to be, or you're not trying to disguise it. That's what's a pet peeve of mine, and that's what this movie did. Now, look, we all knew it was going to make money. That's not a surprise, and it did exactly what I thought it would do. I knew it would do what, you know, it beat Dark Knight Rise. There's inflation, so you know it's going to happen. I knew the worldwide gross would probably be the best all time for a comic book movie. And you want to know why it was? Because it did well in China, and you know, Batman movies, Superman movies that sometimes for some reason seem to do well there. They always do. And that was the key. It did better in China than a lot of other movies like Avengers and such that have come out over the last few years. So that was the key. That was the key. And I wasn't really shocked by anything it did. It didn't, you know. And but what's very important here is look at the daily numbers. And this is where it's starting to look like Man of Steel. And obviously it did much better than Man of Steel did. Okay, that's a full given. All right. But we all expected that. All right, it came out on Friday. Okay. It makes 81 million on Friday, which is a good number, right? It makes 50 million on Saturday. Makes 33 million on Sunday. Now I know that was Easter, but still makes 15 million today. It's not a good sign. Saturday is the busiest day of the weekend for films. And Easter was on Sunday, yes, but Saturday there's no reason to have dropped from 81 to 50. If you're a movie like we've seen with the Marvel movies or with Star Wars over the last few years that's going to do these big numbers, what usually happens on Saturday? You get 81 on Friday. What do you usually get on Saturday? You probably get around 100 or 90. They got 50. They dropped off 31 million. And an additional 27 on Sunday. Now, 15 million is good for a Monday for a movie. I mean, look, it's not like Mike said, it's not as high as Deadpool, but it's not bad for a movie. But if we project what's going to happen this coming weekend, now they don't have. See, here's the thing: next 2 weeks they don't have any competition. They should dominate. But the way it dropped off from Friday to Saturday, from 81 to 50, let's assume they get let's say they get to around 40 or 50 million for Friday and 40, 50 million for Saturday. What are you looking at? You're looking at about 70, 80 million, maybe 90 million for the weekend. That's not that good. That's a huge drop. Maybe not that bad for what most people would think, but for this movie, it was deemed as the second coming of all comic book movies. It is. So it's already showing signs. It's going to be another Man of Steel, which is going to drop off considerably. And we all expected that. I said the word of mouth is going to kill this movie, and it's already showing signs of that. Now, that wasn't the only big release this weekend. You had My Big Fat Greek Wedding 2, which, again, nobody expected much out of. I think most people expected around 20 or so million. It did around 17.8 million, came in third. Zootopia did much better than I anticipated. I thought it'd be down to 14, 15. Did 24 million and came in second. That's tremendous. 35% drop out. Easter kind of helped that movie. Maybe more, kids being off from school on Friday, that helped that movie. So a good number for that movie, which continues to do well. Miracles from Heaven, I think we all thought that would get a boost from Easter, as well as Risen. They both did. Miracles from Heaven got to 9.6 million, which is very good. Allegiant fell off like we all thought it would to 9.4 million. That one's been that's rough going for that movie. And then 10 Cloverfield Lane, which has done decently enough, 5.9, and Deadpool continued to do well at 4.8 million in its 7th week of release. Deadpool also announced to now be the top grossing R-rated film of all time. Its worldwide gross is now up to $746.3 million. Which is just fantastic. And it is now the top grossing X-Men movie of all time. Of all time. Domestically, and I think worldwide as well. I'm trying to see if that's the case, and I think it is. Yeah, I think it is. I'm checking X-Men Days of Future Past right now. It's actually going to beat X-Men Days of Future Past by the end of the week. It's about $1 million away, so it'll do that. So it's the highest grossing X-Men film of all time, which is tremendous. So that's your story. I mean, look, nothing out of the ordinary except for Zootopia overperforming. One little tidbit more about Batman versus Superman. Right now, it is for its 4 days. It is tracking 4 million behind Iron Man 3. So put that in perspective. And like I said, next weekend, first weekend of April, a month away from the summer movie season, hard to believe. Really no competition. You got God's Not Dead 2, a drama from Pureflix, opening in 2,300 theaters, over 2,300 theaters. That's the biggest release. Trying to get a little bit of an after Easter boost here. It's a drama. It's another religious film, Christian film, starring Melissa Joan Hart, Jesse Metcalfe, Ray Wise, Robin Givens. Again, these films have been doing very well of late. It'll get some business. It'll probably get about 8, 9, maybe 10 million. The first one did really well. And you got a comedy opening in 1,000 theaters from Freestyle releasing called Meet the Blacks. starring Mike Epps and Mike Tyson, which will probably do about maybe 6-7 million. It's R-rated. Maybe I could surprise me maybe 11, 12, but I'm still thinking 6, 7, maybe 8. And then Midnight Special is a limited release that's expanding into 55 or more theaters. It's a sci-fi film. You've probably seen some interesting previews about the promos about this. Directed and written by Jeff Nichols, starring Adam Driver, Kirsten Dunst, Joe Edgerton, and Michael Shannon. It's already made 374,000 over domestically. It's a movie that a lot of people are actually just got a little bit of buzz around it. So check your local theater listings for that one. That one also in play. But again, with only 55 theaters, don't expect it to make much, maybe $1 million or $2 million if it's lucky. So this weekend belongs to Batman versus Superman. You know, you're probably looking at about 60, 70, maybe 80 million for that movie. And again, that's not great, but for a March movie, I guess they'll take it. And that's really, I think that's probably why they put it in March, because they can justify, oh, it's March and then whatever. But, you know, it'll do about 60, 70, 80 million. Based on the way Zootopia did last week, I'd expect Zootopia to probably be second again, probably around 12, 13 million. Because My Big Fat Greek Wedding is not going to have that good of a hold. It'll probably drop to around 9, 10 million. And it'll probably be right around God's Not Dead and Meet the Blacks, which will be around God's Not Dead, probably around maybe 9, 10 million, right around where My Big Fat Greek Wedding will be. And then you might have Meet the Blacks right around there at 7, 8 million right in there. So those three should be pretty close. But it's going to be Batman versus Superman #1 this week, #1 next week. But again, the drop-off is going to mean that it's not going to do any earth-shattering long-term numbers here. All right, it did break a record for all-time worldwide superhero gross in its first weekend. But that's about the only record I can see it getting, and that was going to happen because it's kind of like an event movie kind of deal, you know. So, but nothing earth-shattering, and I don't think it's going to break any more. I don't think it's going to break any more records. So that's the story from last week. That's the deal for this coming week. Mike, do you have anything to add?
You wasted your money and your time, and everybody knew that.
All right. I feel validated, though, so that's okay.
Yes, you wasted either you wasted a free ticket, a gift card, or you wasted your money on it. So I'd rather be frugal. Sorry. Sorry. Actually, hey. I'm not sorry. That's your choice.
Okay.
Yeah, go ahead. I'm done.
Oh, you're done? Oh, wow. Okay. All right. All right then. Wow, that did not go as expected. All right, so he's done. Well, again, it's a pretty self-explanatory kind of thing, so I guess that makes sense. All right, so we move on. I said it was going to be a demoralizing entertainment part of the show, and we were right. We can't really muster up a lot of enthusiasm. Sorry. We will muster up some enthusiasm as we get closer to summer and we get closer to Captain America: Civil War and Alice in Wonderland, The Looking Glass, and X-Men Apocalypse, and movies that actually have a chance of being good. So yeah. Anyway, let's now jump to our TV highlights of the week because there are some, and I will let Mike, who was very. I'll give him a chance to blow his nose because that'd probably help.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. I will give Mike the chance to go first because I did so much talking in the last segment. I need a little bit of a break. So, Mike, go ahead.
Well, here's the problem. Let's see. What did I see? The Flash was actually pretty decent. I like The Flash. I have not seen Arrow yet because I was actually scared off by the whole Olicity shit. I had to spoil myself to prove that it wasn't that bad, and it isn't, but I haven't seen it yet. I'm one episode behind on Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. I have not seen Gotham since the first Freeze episode. I'm not rushing to it. I actually don't care. Pardon me.
Okay.
Legends of Tomorrow. I'm starting to get fairly annoyed with because they can't seem to get over the fact that by now maybe they should be a bit of a team. And I understand they're not going to address the Mick Rory thing yet.
Mm-hmm.
But when they finally do, I'm actually looking forward to the time they do address what happened between him and Colt. It's very ambiguous. But I hate to see Dominic Purcell leave the show because he and Wentworth Miller have this unbelievable chemistry together. Heat Wave and Cold are two of the best parts. Legends last week was a repeat of the Oliver Queen one, which was probably their best episode.
Yeah.
Probably their best episode, mostly because Stephen Amell really has nailed that character, and he's really good when he's not bogged down with all the Felicity bullshit.
Mm-hmm.
I just hope they break him up for good because it's literally killing the show. Even though they're winning awards for it, but Teen Choice Awards don't matter. Supergirl. I saw the Supergirl episode of with the Flash, and I want to bring this up. Supergirl is not. See, people like the show, and I could see why people like the show. And the lead, who is Melissa Benoist or Benoist, I don't know.
Mm-hmm.
Benoist.
Yeah, I know who you mean.
Whatever.
Yeah.
She is actually an excellent Supergirl. She's excellent. But the show itself isn't great. In my opinion. It's not great. However, The Flash is a really good show with lots of charm. And Grant Gustin is fantastic as the Flash. And DC was stupid not to try to incorporate him in their Justice League.
Right.
But Grant Gustin was the breath of fresh air this show needed. And it was almost like they were really sad to see him go. Mm-hmm. Because literally, the Barry Allen came in. He solved most of Supergirl's problems. He gives her every bit of advice she needs. He tells their police department how to solve with all the how to deal with all these metahumans and these powered people. And then he's gone, just leaving the biggest impact of any guest character on any show ever. Especially one of these shows. He was like Oliver Queen, what Oliver Queen was to him. He was to Supergirl almost. And honestly, he was the best part of the show, 100%. But the show is not very good, so it wasn't that hard. And the Flash this week was actually pretty good. Look, they're doing some good work over on Flash now. They're kind of hitting their stride. I have to watch Arrow. It's hard. It's hard to bring myself to it. That's where I am TV wise. It's like I haven't really caught up on everything. There's things that I'm really dragging my heels on. There's things that everybody's going nuts over that I just don't give two shits about. I don't even give one shit about it. See, I'm not a fan of The Walking Dead, so I don't care.
Oh, you're fine. You're seeing all the hype.
Of course, I'm seeing all the hype, and I'm seeing Kevin Owens drawn as the bad guy.
Negan
this season.
Yeah,
Negan. Yeah. Hey, and Kevin Owens beating people up is great. I don't give two shits about The Walking Dead though. So, but hey, it's my television. My television watching is what it is.
Yeah,
I'm watching repeats of Boston Legal. It's a great show. You should probably watch it.
Wow.
among other things. Go ahead.
Well, listen, I'm pretty much caught up on. I mean, I didn't watch this week's Gotham, although, again, that's not really too much of a loss. I really wasn't looking forward to it. Although I heard some interesting. I wanted to see. I do want to see where they're going to go with the Jim Gordon thing, especially since they seem like they're all in on this whole punishment arc for him, which it needed to happen. If you ever have any chance at using that character again, he needs to go through hell. I mean, he just does. And they're kind of doing that now. The Penguin thing I'm really interested in because we're now at seeing his father, and that interests me a lot. So, I mean, I'm curious about that. I haven't seen it yet. Again, I'm only caught up through this week, so I haven't seen it yet. But I did check Walking Dead out. It was a great episode, but it's one of those episodes where you're waiting. It's a good episode. There's good build up. It had a great ending, a good cliffhanger ending, which. I hate the fact that they're so worried about Darrow that they can't even let you have the cliffhanger ending without giving you hope that he makes it through, because that just kind of ruined it. But anyway, it was a good episode, good build up, great performance again by Marissa McBride. But it's one of those episodes where you're like, I know what's what's coming next week. It's the big finale, the 90 minutes. It's the episode that people have been waiting 4 years for since it happened in the comics. It's the biggest thing in Walking Dead that's ever happened, at least to this point. Already the hype machine's out of control. It's some people are calling it the TV event of the season. It's crazy, but it's hitting on Sunday. And when you hear all that hype, you're like, all right, I kind of just want to get through that to get to this. So I anticipate this week's episode, 90 minutes, being absolutely astounding. You know, it's the one they can't screw this up. It's kind of like the No Way Out episode that started this last half. Can't screw it up. It's so huge they cannot screw it up. So
they can screw it up.
Well, no, I'm saying they can, but to me there's no choice. If you screw it up, then you turned off pretty much your entire fan base. They didn't screw up No Way Out. They didn't screw that up. So I have hope that they won't do this. So that's good. Blind Spot's been good. I don't really have much to say about it. I do agree with you on this. The Flash is pretty much the only DC show that really is in any way decent to watch. It did have that same kind of rut that Arrow is still in, where it's kind of like it was kind of meandering, but it seems like it's coming out of it now. I'm really worried about Legends of Tomorrow. I am really worried because that show. You know what? I can understand if it takes a show a while to get going. We've seen that happen before, but when the basic fundamental strength of the show, which is the team, is taking this long to come together, that's an issue. So that's problematic. I will give now. I'm going to be very delicate with this criticism because I don't want to give a negative review of the episode because the episode itself was fantastic. The ending itself, I don't really say this that much, and this doesn't happen to me very easily. I don't cry very easily. Okay, I don't tear up very easily. I've only done that so many times when I watched a show or a movie. Okay, I cried at the end of Toy Story 3. I'll admit that. That if your eyes didn't well watching that, I don't know what it's just the way it is. But the end of Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. last week, absolutely, my eyes did well up. That was one of the most emotionally draining scenes that show has ever had. I think it is the most emotionally draining scene that show's ever had. It was very good. I didn't expect it on this kind of show. I'm glad they did it. But in a way, it does fit because they always play off how close the team is. And it didn't feel like acting. It felt like it was the actors. You know how close they are offset, just saying goodbye. It was a very, very well done thing. The music, the whole thing. The episode itself, it was a nice kind of bottle episode for Bobby and Hunter. And I don't think I'm spoiling anything. I think by now people know. It was their last episode. All right. It was a good setup. It also gave you a taste of what their show was going to be. And a lot of people are like, well, why did they do it that way? Doesn't it make it hard for them to come back? It doesn't, okay? It's a comic book show. Get over it, all right? They can easily write them back in. That doesn't bother me. What bothers me is I don't feel like it's a good idea to give them a show. If you want to give them a mini series, take them off for a little bit and have them get a mini series and bring them back, that's fine. I don't think you can sustain a multiple season show with these two characters, and that says a lot because they're in the comics, right? I mean, Bobby Morris is a huge character in the comics, but I just don't think the way that she's been used so far, it doesn't sustain. She's better as part of a team with Hunter and all the S.H.I.E.L.D. characters. These two characters were very crucial in making the show better last season and giving it a great season 2. And you're taking them out of that. Now, again, they do have other characters there now to kind of balance it out. But still, it was a good send-off. It was an interesting episode. The whole team was used. They tied up a lot of loose ends. It was a good episode. The ending itself was probably the most emotional scene I've seen on anything all season in TV. It was amazing. But what really kind of, and again, I'm trying to keep my feeling about this separate from the episode. I don't think this is necessary. I don't mind an Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. spinoff, okay? But I wouldn't have done it this way. You could have did a Deathlock spinoff or something. That would have been fun. But this doesn't really, I honestly don't think. The cool thing is that you can always bring them back. They've already been renewed for season 4. You can bring them back. So it is kind of a very low risk kind of thing, but I just don't think it's necessary. And that kind of, I have to be able to detach that from the episode because otherwise it kind of ruins the episode for me. So, yeah. So, there you go. That's really all. There really wasn't much. A lot of things were on hiatus because of the basketball and that. So really, other than watching basketball and those few shows, I haven't really watched anything else this week. So, yeah, there you go. TV highlights. Joy. All right. So we got through everything we had to get through. There isn't any entertainment news that I think has to be talked about tonight. It's been rather quiet. Let's see. Yeah, I think we're going to end early tonight. Okay. I'm just checking something in the email box here. Okay. Yeah, we're going to end early. There's really no entertainment news. And none of you actually emailed anything to us, so we're good. We're going to end early tonight. We'll probably have a longer show on Thursday, so that works out. But, all right. So, as always, the show might be over. It does not mean you have to stop interacting or contributing to our show. You can continue to have your voice heard by giving us your feedback, your suggestions about the show, scheduling of the show, any reactions, questions, or comments related to anything we talked about on the show, any topics we discussed, anything like that. Topic ideas or breaking news items related to sports, entertainment, or wrestling. You want to make sure that we cover any of those things. You can do by email, Facebook, and Twitter. You can email us at itspotlight411@gmail.com. You can also follow us and tweet us at itspotlight411. Please remember to use the hashtags, hashtag itspotlight411 or hashtag its5. That one, again, represents the 50th anniversary on the air as a podcast, or anything with hashtag ITS in it. ITS Wrestling, ITS Sports, anything like that. Be creative. Just use hashtag ITS in it. And don't forget to do that. It helps promote our show, so we really do appreciate that. You can also find us on Facebook. Just search for In the Spotlight 411 on Facebook and make sure you like our page upon finding it. We encourage you to follow us on Facebook and Twitter for the latest updates about our show. If there's any last-minute cancellations, schedule changes, any of that kind of thing, that is the best way to get that knowledge, other than our main show page on Podbean, which is where we put our episode archives and stuff. So, but really the best place to get information on our show is Facebook and Twitter. If you'd like to keep up with our show, maybe you missed an episode or missed a part of an episode, or maybe you want to check out an episode again or a classic episode, whatever the case may be, you have a couple ways of doing that. If you're somebody that likes the streaming format, like seeing us on actual screen, and you're a fan of Google Plus and YouTube, then check us right out here on Google Plus and on YouTube. But please do keep in mind, the only episodes available on Google Plus and YouTube are episodes that we produced here on Google Plus and YouTube, which means everything from when we debuted here on these two sites, which was in October of last year, right through now, including tonight's episode. Those are the only episodes available on here on these two sites. So please do keep in mind. So if that all works for you, make sure you search for In the Spotlight 401 here on Google Plus and on YouTube. You'll have access to all the episodes from October till now and be able to watch them again and again. Or if you missed an episode, watch it for the first time, or missed a part of the episode, watch that for the first time. So please do keep that in mind. Maybe you're a fan of the audio podcasting. You don't really like streaming. Maybe you just like to listen to us on the go. You prefer listening instead of watching, whatever the case may be. Or maybe you're somebody that also is wanting to check out our older episodes from before October. Whatever the case may be, you can check us out on Podbean and on iTunes. Podbean is our main host site. All the episodes are available. All the episodes we've ever done are available on there. From way back when we started on Blog Talk Radio, right to when we moved to Talk Shoe and to Lives In, and obviously all of our Google Plus and YouTube episodes also available in audio format as well. All of it is available in audio format from the most recent episode to the oldest. So they're all available on there for your convenience. So if you missed an episode, or maybe you're maybe missed a part of an episode, or you're a new fan that wants to check out some of our older classic episodes from before Google Plus and YouTube, or you're a longtime fan that wants to check out those older episodes again, whatever the case may be, you can check out those episodes on Podbean. You can also check those episodes out on iTunes, but do keep in mind, you have to look for two separate show titles. If you want something from before October of last year, from before Google Plus and YouTube episodes, you want to search for In the Spotlight with Brian Gardner on iTunes, and you'll find those old episodes that range from October 2010 all the way through October of 2015. And if you're looking for episodes that are from October of last year, October 2015 till now, which includes tonight's episode, you want to make sure that you search for In the Spotlight 411, our current title, to find those episodes. We're working on a way to combine that, but that's the way you have to do it in order to find those respective episodes. So please do keep that in mind. So you have a couple ways in which to keep up with our show, catch up and check out episodes for the first time or check them out again. Whether it's Google Plus or YouTube or Podbean or iTunes, many ways to keep up with our show. So that will be that. I want to thank Mike for being here tonight. Thank you, Mike, as always.
Real quick, I did mention that there were 3 major deaths this week. So just kind of want to acknowledge them before we sign off.
Mm-hmm.
A couple days ago, and I know this is weird that I'm even mentioning this, but the founder of the Eternal Word television network. Yep. Mother Angelica, who was 95 years old. She passed away. Patty Duke, who was an Oscar-winning actress, author, and mental health advocate. Mother of actor Sean Astin. She passed away recently, just today. And Frank Sinatra Jr.
Oh, that's okay.
Which was recent today. He had a career as a classic singer, kind of like his dad of the modern era. He was pretty good. He passed away suddenly today. So to all 3 of those people, our condolences to their families, and their in Mother Angelica's case, her ministry and her friends, and rest in peace. Rest in peace.
I'm glad you brought that, because I had brought up two of them early in the show, but I did not mention Frank Sinatra Jr. That one I did not mention, so I'm glad you brought that up. And I'll reiterate again our condolences and thoughts and prayers to their families, friends, fans, and may they all rest in peace. All of them, just tremendous impacts in a number of ways. So I'm glad you brought that up. All right. Well, Mike, I want to thank you for being here tonight. Thank you.
And now it's time to go to bed, so I got to get up early.
Thank myself for another great show. Pat myself on the back, and thank all of you for your continued support and contributions to the show. Thank you so much for watching, or to those of you that'll be listening to this archive later as well. Thank you for that. Whether you watch or listen, we appreciate it. Again, Thursday is an all-wrestling show previewing WWE's WrestleMania 32. If you got questions or comments that you'd like to submit, you can do that either before the show by email, Facebook, or Twitter, or during the show on Thursday night. So make sure that you do that if you're interested. Again, we are back on a 2-show schedule this week. Thursday, we do have a show, 8 o'clock p.m. Eastern Time here on Google Plus and on YouTube. Next week, right now, I'm thinking we will only have one show. I will let you all know about that on Thursday for sure. But that right now, if it is one show, then next Tuesday we'll talk about the Final Four, whoever won the championship, all that good stuff. And do what we've been doing. NCAA tournament discussion, any other sports headlines, we'll talk about them. Entertainment, box office beat, TV highlights, all that stuff we'll do on Tuesday. And we'll probably do some WrestleMania discussion too. And that'll be Tuesday's show. If it's only one show, if it's two shows, then we'll split it up as normal. But so I'll let you all know about that on Thursday. And all the other announcements I gave you at the beginning of the show, so I'm not going to do them again. A couple of you had emailed me and said, you guys previewed the Final Four, but you didn't make any predictions. Well, I don't think we want to jinx anything, but I'll just say this. I'm not going to predict each game. I'll make one prediction. I'm going to pick North Carolina to win it. I'll just do that. I'll say North Carolina wins the championship this weekend. That's what I'll say. And I don't think my co-host wants to give a prediction because he don't want to jinx anything. So,
I'm not going to jinx anything. North Carolina, I believe, is the favorite, though.
Yeah. So, all right. So we'll see how it goes. Should be an interesting weekend again. You can stay tuned to my Twitter and my Facebook. I'll be doing some, like I did the last couple of weeks, do a little posting here and there. Depends on how the games are. If the games are good, you'll see me post more. If they're not good, then, So, and maybe even during WrestleMania, I'll make some tweets or something like that. But, so that being said, we are done. I'm funny. I'm talking about this weekend. We're going to have a show on Thursday. So I keep forgetting. It's been so long since we've had that. But anyway, I hope you all have a great rest of your night, a great Wednesday, and a great Thursday. We'll see you back here for our next show this coming Thursday night, March the 31st, our last show of March, the end of the madness. This coming Thursday night, our next show, 8:00 p.m. Eastern Time, broadcasting and streaming live here on Google Plus and on YouTube. Until then, I hope you all have a great night. We'll talk to you again on Thursday.